I've said before that the Jimmy Dore Show has some of the worst coverage of the war in Ukraine online. Cherry picks a lot, doesn't show you a full picture. It really feels like they've crafted a dialogue tree to give the most surface level knowledge of the conflict possible, only providing information that would help them make the case against sending aid. Right? That is my read from their show. And a lot of times just straight up lying. Like saying America overthrew the Ukrainian government in 2014. We installed, our own regime. Like try to take it all from the Victoria Nuland phone call, which that phone call does not indicate whatsoever. Right? Just a lot of the bottom of the barrel lies is what you're gonna get about the war in Ukraine from the Jimmy Dore Show. But recently they made a mistake that I haven't even seen from other publications that are like pro-Russia or very sympathetic to Russian imperialism. They made a mistake that is so basic. You have to imagine that they literally have no frame of reference from what's happening in Ukraine, and they know nobody from Ukraine. Recently, Jimmy Dore had to take a step away, and he had somebody called Craig host his show. And while hosting the show, he wanted to talk about the Svoboda Party. Now, if you guys are familiar with the Svoboda Party, the Svoboda Party is a far-right party in Ukraine that has lost more popularity as time's gone on. I think they hold like 1 seat out of 450 in the Rada. They're polling at less than 3%. Not a very popular party, but they are a far-right party in Ukraine. He starts to associate it with Radio Liberty. Now, I don't know if you guys know what Radio Liberty is. Radio Liberty is a radio network that the American Congress helps pay for and sponsor to give an alternative perspective to what is usually portrayed in Russia by the government, right? A lot of people call it Western propaganda because it is obviously financed by the United States Congress. But that's not the discussion isn't about, the editorial independence of Radio Liberty. He just sees that it's called Radio Svoboda, the Russian language radio station, Radio Svoboda. Now, the reason why the far-right Svoboda Party is called Svoboda is because Svoboda translates into freedom. And so in Ukraine, there's the Freedom Party, which is a far-right political party. And in Russia, there's Radio Svoboda, which translates quite literally into Radio Freedom. But this dumb schmuck has so little knowledge of the language of these two things, of the party and of the radio station and where they're based and what they do, that he just equated the two. He just heard that the Svoboda Party, then he heard another thing called Svoboda, and then he just made them the same thing. He just heard that both of these things have the word freedom in it, and it's literally the same thing. This would be like, yeah, the Democratic Party and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. Obviously, they're the same. No, they're not. They're two completely different things. For example, the Svoboda Party is in Ukraine. Radio Svoboda is a Russian language radio station that broadcasts for both people in Ukraine and people in Russia in a separate country. Anyway, listen to him. Just remember that. Svoboda just translates into freedom. He's talking about two separate things, but he heard the word freedom, probably doesn't know what it translates into, and just heard, oh, Svoboda this, Svoboda that, must be the same thing. This is the type of coverage you're going to get at the Jimmy Dore Show. Listen to this.
Radio Free Europe promoted this Svoboda channel, this radio channel, George Soros' parent company that he had all his grubby fingers on, invested in, privatized, promoted this other small channel, the Svoboda Party's Radio Svoboda.
Svoboda is the...
it's this, Kurt.
Okay.
This is the BBC back when it was cool, right? In 2012, when you could talk about Nazis or the ultra-nationalists.
Hey, they're not Nazis, they're just ultra-nationalists. Like... In America, if we had people that were called ultra-nationalists here, no one would think of them as Nazis.
Well,
they would just go, oh, come on, they're just ultra-nationalists.
They're just ultra.
We do have ultra-nationalists here. Does he know about 3%ers? Does he know about the Proud Boys? Those would be people like, the Proud Boys literally advertise themselves as Western chauvinists. Those would be people I would call ultra-nationalists. Are they Nazis? There are probably people in the Proud Boys that are Nazis, but are they all Nazis? No, I wouldn't call the Proud Boys Nazis. I do think there's a distinction. The Proud Boys are still violent thugs who participated in the insurrection. But, I mean, I do think there's a distinction. Not that I think being specific or trying to be balanced in your critique or how you label people is something that the show particularly cares about.
Internationally, and you could see them fighting and pushing, but you know, you got it over here from Insider. I'm sorry I went too far with that, man. John McCain went to Ukraine and stood on stage with a man accused of being an anti-Semitic neo-Nazi. This is of the Svoboda Party, and I can't let him off the hook, but also Lindsey Graham was there, and Senator Murphy was there from Connecticut, and you could see, this is the dude right here. There he is, with the head of Svoboda.
Hey.
And there's your guy right over there.
Wait a minute. Boy, it's really strange how this theme keeps popping up at the top.
What?
The hailing a cab motion. Nobody can find a cab out there.
Belarus labeled Radio Liberty as extremist. Radio Liberty, Radio Free Europe, subsidized, financed, privatized by George Soros, who then went on, right there, Radio Svoboda, and there's Svoboda.
He's so fucking, he has no idea. He literally has no idea. Radio Svoboda, he thinks it's the same thing. He legitimately thinks the Svoboda political party and Radio Svoboda, which again, Svoboda just translates into the word freedom. This guy has no knowledge about what he's talking about. He has no knowledge whatsoever. This is to the level if somebody was in America and they were saying like, you know, America is a republic, a democratic republic, therefore it's led by Republicans. Yeah, the Republicans are people who are in favor of a republic. Yes. No, these two, the Republican Party and the republic, these are two separate things. He has no clue. The depth of knowledge on this issue is not even surface level. Because a Googling of Radio Svoboda, Radio Liberty, and Googling of the Svoboda Party would show two separate Wikipedia pages. Just part of two totally separate things. Not connected in any way. In any way. In fact, you would probably find many people in this Svoboda Party who would have many disagreements with the people who work at Radio Liberty. Because of their far-right views. And the fact that a lot of people work at Radio Liberty in this region of the world are, I guess you could call them liberal, you know? Liberal or westernized, whatever you want to call it. You know, favorable towards the issues like LGBT rights and stuff like that Svoboda is very going to be against. But this guy just heard the word Svoboda and just assumed that, okay, political party Svoboda, anything with Svoboda, it's all the same. He just doesn't understand how foreign languages work. This isn't just him not understanding how Ukraine works. This is him not understanding how foreign languages work. This shows such a lack of knowledge.
This is an immoral.
I don't understand how Jimmy Dore came to deciding this guy should host the show in his place. Who made the decision that this guy should be talking about the war in Ukraine? Who made the decision? Who was the guy that was like, that Craig guy? You know, that guy, you know, who's never been to Ukraine, probably not talking to many Ukrainians, knows nothing about the war, nothing about the domestic politics. We're talking about a party with less than 3% of the vote, by the way, that specifically allied with other far-right political parties last election to try to hit the 5% threshold, couldn't hit it. With all of the far-right ultranationalists united, they still couldn't hit 5%. And we're still talking about him. And okay, we're going to talk about him. Let's talk about him. But he doesn't even know who they are. How am I supposed to discuss the far-right issue in Ukraine? Because there are far-right people in Ukraine. There's far-right people in everywhere. And I want to limit things like hate crimes. I want to push back against this hateful ideology. But these guys don't even know who the far-right are, what they believe, or anything about them. They don't even know what their parties are about, or what Svoboda is. How am I supposed to discuss Svoboda? How am I supposed to discuss right sector? How am I supposed to discuss the National Core or any of these movements if you don't know the basics about it? This is not a genuine interest here of fighting against, you know, anti-Semitism or racism or fighting against like bigotry towards the Romani community or anything like that. This is just being performatively anti-Ukraine, so he's grabbing at anything he can, and in that desperate type of straw-grabbing behavior, he grabbed onto the word Svoboda and just ran with it. He just, in his head, was like a caveman, like, Svoboda, bad, Svoboda, racist, Svoboda there, bad, 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 Svoboda there, bad, bad, bad. That's literally what his mind did. He just saw the word freedom associated with a political party, and then just like took that word now associated with it. So is this like if he saw like a crowd of Ukrainians yelling, "We fight for Svoboda! Svoboda!" He'd be, "Ha! There it is! Neo-Nazi crowd." They could just be chanting, "We fight for freedom," right? This isn't surface level knowledge. This is negative knowledge about a conflict. There are some people that think they know a lot about a conflict, but I genuinely believe, or any topic, and they know negative. Not because, you know, somebody like sucked knowledge out of their brain, but because the knowledge that they built upon, the foundation they built upon to understand a conflict, to understand an issue, is so faulty that now they know less. They know negative. Because the sources that they used were so flawed that you can't build a good foundation because it's rotted out. If I tried to build a house with a rotted out foundation full of termites, it's going to collapse in on itself with the slightest pressure. Same thing here. Could you imagine this guy's trying to go back and forth with a Ukraine supporter, and he all of a sudden talked about how George Soros funded Svoboda because he didn't know the difference between Radio Liberty and the Svoboda political party? This is embarrassing. This is Jimmy Dore coverage on the war in Ukraine. Congratulations. They don't even have, they can't even get Google Translate up. Very sad. Do 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 do.